What's going on, everybody? So today we have a massive video for you all. We're going to be going through every single legendary gem and rating them on the tier list here. We're going to do this for PvE and PvP. Normally I do it for every class, but I figured we swap it up here and do something different. I have the new 8 legendary gems here. Over here, there we go. As you can see, and I'm going to leave timestamps in the description down below if you guys want to check out each part. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, so going into the criteria here, first off, I want to mention that we have 5, 2, and 1 star gems, which is a realistic factor. However, it's not realistic to compare a 1 to 2 star gem at rank 10 to a 5 star gem at rank 10, because most people won't even be able to afford the rank 10 5-star gem. So what I'll do is I'll only factor resonance a little bit in this list because it does have an impact, but it's not quite as big as, you know, comparing like 1,000 resonance 5 out of 5 star gem to like a 150, you know, 1 star rank 10 gem, etc., etc. So keep that in mind. And as I say that, we're going to be basing it off of rank 10 gem effects. So what they're actually giving you at rank 10. Again, 5-star gems are going to be looked at a little bit differently. I'm going to consider that just in the back of my head as I'm thinking about this. Also, damage is king, guys. I love damage way more so than survivability. Beneficial effect duration is also something that also up there that's really, really good. But really, we're just thinking about damage. Any way to get more damage, whether that's beneficial effect increasing, random effects, strict damage on the gem, or damage multiplication, all of that type of stuff is really, really favorable for me. I personally do not like the survivability gems all that much because for PvE, at least, you really don't have any difficult content. For PvP, it is a little bit different because obviously survivability can help you a little bit, but even the survivable gems, they don't offer enough, in my opinion, when they're reduced by 66% to really be able to be played around, and therefore aren't really good in PvP all that much either. We're separating those two though, PvE first. And the last thing I want to mention is the categories themselves. What do each of these mean? So we have S, A, B, C, and D. S tier is going to be the gems that are either generally absolutely a crazy gem, meaning every single class can use this gem and be really, really successful. A tier is going to be gems that are either really, really solid in every scenario, or gems that on a certain class or certain scenario, specifically certain class, because scenario would mean that you're changing your gems between content. You don't really want that. So really certain classes are going to be absolutely amazing. You know, ranged classes that get value out of ranged gems, and then you have melee classes that get value out of melee gems. Keep that in mind. So those gems that are niche but really a top tier are going to be an A tier. B tier is going to be those average type gems that you can be like, yeah, I'm going to slot this in. This is going to do something for me, but I'm not exactly happy about it. I just happen to pull a 5 out of 5 legendary gem or whatever. And you're going to have the gems that are like niche. Okay, I could definitely use this one in my niche build. C tier is going to just be the below average stuff that you're never really going to use, in my opinion, if you can find a replacement as soon as possible. And D tier are just, here's gem power. Honestly, C and D tier are just gem power for the most part, but C tier, in my opinion, has a little bit more use in some scenarios. I also have some of the older icons on here. It took me a little while to create this list, so I apologize about that. And the newer gems are a little bit bigger, so, you know, again, it is what it is. So you guys are just gonna have to deal with it. All right, with that being said, let's get into our PvE list. So I don't want to go through and talk about each gem in depth. I want to give you guys a kind of a quicker, you know, 30-second brief on each gem. So that's what I'll do as I go through. I might end up talking a little bit longer or a little bit shorter about some of these, so just keep that in mind. Battle Guard's the first one up. It's a C tier gem for me. Decreasing melee damage is pretty pitiful, in my opinion, especially in PvE. The thing is, I might consider this a D tier, but the effect is actually a lot of damage reduction, to be honest. So that is quite nice. And, you know, if you are a melee class, you can actually get a little bit of value out of this one, even though I hate damage reduction gems. Berserker's Eye, instant S tier. I know this is the older icon, but this is going to be a damage amping gem. Despite it being a 1 star, the damage amplification you get from it makes it be on par to those 5 stars. Even maxed out 5-star gems, it can compete there. Chain Death, this is the old icon, as I mentioned, or Black Rose, sorry. This is not the old icon, I'm at Chain Death over here. But Black Rose, I don't personally like this one. This is just an absolute D tier. Immobilizing enemies is just going to be pretty bad. There isn't really much to say about that. I do have a little bit of a list over here, by the way, on the right-hand side, so I can go ahead and look at some of them. while I'm going through to make sure that I'm getting the rank 10 gem effects correct. Then we have the Blessing of the Worthy. This one's going to be an A tier gem. Now, I know that we have that kind of text issue where it's current life instead of maximum life, but still on those melee classes, I would think that it is A tier, especially for Crusader and Monk. Even for Barbarian, you're oftentimes going to get a lot of value out of this in PvE, and so I would rank it as an A tier gem. Bloodsoaked Jade, instant S tier. This really doesn't need much more explanation. Movement speed, damage amping, what more do you need? Bloody Reach, this one's going to be an A tier gem as well. This, in my opinion, on range classes like Wizard and Demon Hunter are just going to be absolutely insane. And then even on the Necro is going to be really good. But for classes like Satyr, Monk, for example, just absolute trash. Bottled Hope. Now this one, I have a hard time, taking it out of the S tier, but I am going to be taking it out of the S tier into the A tier. And basically, the reason for that is not every class really wants to run a ton of beneficial effects to get value out of this, and the effect isn't like all the time like Bloodsoaked Jade or Berserker's Eye. Therefore, it ends up in the A tier. Carson's Invigoration, another A tier gem in my opinion. This is going to increase your primary attack speed, really good for things like Barbarian, things like Demon Hunter, things like Crusader, even, potentially Monk or Necro can get use out of this one. The only one that really can't is Wizard, in my opinion. Wizards, in that case, primary attack speed is kind of awkward. So, keep that in mind. But really, really good. Competes with some of the other ones just because of that massive primary attack speed increase and primary attack damage increase. Here is the Chained Rose. Okay, so Chained Rose here, or Chained Death, right? I don't know why I said Chained Rose, but Chained Death. This one, it's hard for me to rate. I think I'll put it in B tier. This one's one of those average ones where you kind of have to hit multiple targets to get the damage increase. And I don't know, I just don't personally like it. So I kind of want to drop it into C tier. And I think that because I'm on the border, I'm going to put it in C tier for right now. Is it? Yeah, it is a 1-star gem. So to me, that pushes a little bit closer to C tier, but I think that's a good place for it. Ship of the Stoneflesh, this is a B tier gem. The damage on it is decent, but you need a total loss of control effect, guys. This is the tricky part. Not everything is a total loss of control, and so keep that in mind when you're using this. But the damage curse effect is actually really, really nice, and you can get a lot of value out of this one. Cutthroat's Grin, this is going to be a C tier gem as well. The crit rate bonuses for being behind an enemy is kind of hard to accomplish, and I don't think the payoff is that big or in PvE content, especially when you're open world farming, challenge, or things like that. Everyone's facing you anyway, so it's kind of hard to get value out of it. Next one, we have the Defiant Soul, I believe is the name of this. And this one is this a C tier gem as well? I want to put it in C tier. Man, yeah, C. The thing that's pushing it towards C tier is I think this is a decent gem for Crusader if you're free to play, because of that block damage. Yeah, I'll leave it in C tier. Yeah, we'll leave it in C tier. Echoing Shade, this one's also a really solid one. The clone's gonna use your basic attack, primary attack, and for me, that puts it in B tier because for some classes, it's really nice, like really solid. And then for some classes, it's just really kind of poor. So things like Demon Hunter, things like those range classes that you could constantly get value out of, I find this being very good. But other classes, in PvE, I don't know, kind of mediocre. I can see an argument for A tier, but for me, I'm going to keep it in B tier. By the way, I might adjust some of these gems as I see the full list unraveling because I'm just rating these live for you guys. So if you guys want to check out the end of the PvE section, you might see a different placement for some of these. Everlasting Torment is an A tier gem. The attack speed increase coupled with the damage that it's offering makes it a very, very solid gem, but I don't think it's quite on the par of these damage amping gems or some of the other damage dealing gems that I will go over later on. Follower's Burden, I believe this is what this one is. Oh man, this one's a C tier gem. It's literally only useful for Necro, and even then, it's not like this insane gem. Freedom of Devotion is the same thing, ends up in the C tier for me. I very much find this gem a little awkward, so I don't quite like it. Howler's Call, this one's an A tier gem for me. I really like the wolf effect. The damage dealing on it is really nice. It helps you open world farm, helps you burst damage some bosses down. Quite a good gem. Hunger, this is a D tier gem. Hot take, guys. but I don't really like the health. It's a really poor cooldown. The health value you get from it is really, really poor. And even the bonus that you get from it is pretty poor at that rank 3 because you do get I don't remember if it's movement speed or attack speed because I don't remember which one was bugged and which one wasn't. But I don't know. It's just pretty poor. I could see an argument for C tier because of that rank 3 effect, but maybe I'll put it in C tier for right now. Lightning Core is a B tier gem. The damage on it is decent, and also the damage amping you get after it is decent, and overall it's just not a bad effect. Okay, oh man, what is the name of this one? Trickshot gem, I believe. No, this is Trickshot gem. Yeah, this is Trickshot gem. So Trickshot gem, no, this is Trickshot gem. This is something trash. Oh man, I forgot the name of it. It's oh, is this Chained Death? Mocking Laughter, that's what it is. Mocking Laughter, this is a D tier gem. Mocking Laughter, I don't remember the pictures all that often. I just remember the names, to be honest. Yeah, Mocking Laughter is the taunt duration one, so that one's a trash one. Very, very poor. The fact that you can only taunt certain enemies, and it's just like, who cares about taunt, right? Nightmare Wreath, I really dislike this one as well. I find it a D tier gem. The fear duration is very short. The damage that you that you are getting increased by the fear is not enough. And oftentimes, I don't want enemies being scattered apart because that's what fear does. I want them grouped together. So they're actually counterintuitive for this type of effect. Pain of Subjugation, damage increasing for loss of control. This is going to be a C tier. I find that you can really get some value out of this one in a lot of different places. Phoenix Ash is also a C tier gem. Get a lot of C tier here. This is a C tier. I don't like the shield. The only time it's useful is when I'm like AFKing and you find yourself close to death. You get the shield and bail yourself out. Power and Command is an A tier gem. There's a lot of classes that can get a lot of use out of both modes, and the damage amping gems are very, very good. The problem is I don't think it's quite in the Bloodsoaked Jade Berserker's Eye category. Therefore, it is getting pushed down to A tier in my opinion. Then we have Respite Stone. I don't know about this one, guys. Respite Stone. This one is going to be a D tier gem. I don't like this one. It's just pretty poor. The damage decrease is just pretty poor. Seeping Bile, this is an S tier gem. The damage that you're going to get from this one is just applicable for every character. It's going to be able to spread to other enemies, which is really good in dungeon content and open world farming. It can oftentimes just kill off some enemies behind you while you're running through. Sled's Weakening, this is a B tier gem. You're going to find that the Sled's Weakening is really good in scenarios where you have elite monsters to kill. You're going to get a ton of value out of this gem, arguably better than Berserker's Eye in those scenarios. The problem is that those scenarios are not as often as Berserker's Eye. Therefore, it earns a B tier category, and I think that's a good spot for it. Trickshot gem. This is the Trickshot gem. This is going to be a B tier gem. I find that it's really good on Wizard, very good on Barbarian. You can get some value out of those two classes, and those are going to be the ones that you're really going to get a ton of value out of Trickshot gem. And if you're free to play or low spender, I really would recommend this gem for you. Unity Crystal, another one that to me ends up in the D tier. I very much dislike this gem. This one offering you a little bit of damage decrease up to 5%. Like, are you kidding me? That's like really bad, but you know, it just ends up in the D tier for me. Zodstone, I don't like this one either. Ultimate abilities are just so few and far between. Making them better is just something that I don't even care about because you don't even have your ultimate all the time, and even if you do, it's very limited times. You don't really get a ton of value out of it. Swenson's Haunting has actually bumped up to a B tier for me. I quite like Swenson's Haunting just because I think that it's really nice for farming, and that's a majority of PvE content. It's also good for dungeons, killing off a mob, and then getting some value out of this one. Fervent Fang is an S tier gem in my opinion. The damage amping on boss fights, on Heliquary, on Challenge Rift bosses is absolutely insane. You're not going to get the same value in open world farming, but pretty much every other piece of content where you're hitting an enemy for just a little bit of time, you're going to get a ton of value out of this gem, and I really like it. The problem with this gem is that you can't get a ton of copies, even to rank it up to 10, just because it is a battle pass gem. So that if you take that in consideration, I might put it at A tier or even B tier because it's hard to get copies out of this one. Abiding Curse, I quite like this gem. This one's one of the newer ones. We have the newer ones upcoming here in just a second. Abiding Curse, you're going to go ahead and find that you're going to get a lot of damage amping. The CC that it's applying is actually really solid, and I quite like this one as well. Blessed Pebble, this is an A tier gem for me. The beneficial effect duration increase is really, really good on several classes. Things like Satyr, things like Barbarian can get a ton of value out of this one. Even things like Demon Hunter can get value from their Vengeance, things like that. So I really, really like Blessed Pebble. Heartstone, I think this is a D tier gem. I don't think that increasing the value of absorption shields is good at all. Therefore, it is a D tier gem. Volatility Shard, this one's a C tier one. I find that you really have to get a ton of damage on this gem to make it useful like Swenson's, and it just doesn't do the damage that it needs to get value out of it. Curse Sling, this one to me is a B tier gem. You're gonna get some value out of damage amping, things like that. I quite like that aspect of it, and so to me it earns a B tier gem. Then we have Concentrated Will and Hellfire Fragment and Frozen Heart. These ones are probably the most tricky of this whole list. Hellfire Fragment, I kind of want to put in the A tier, but I think I'm going to settle for the B tier. The damage isn't super insane, and I don't think the damage is comparable to something like Howler's Call. Therefore, to me, it's just a step down and earns the B tier. Concentrated Will, I'm going to go ahead and be ambitious and put it in the A tier. Any class that commonly uses dashes for open world or just PvE content, challenge rifts, dungeon farming, open world farming, you can get a lot of value out of the bonuses after you land your dash effect. It's not permanent like Bloodsoaked Jade, Berserker's Eye, or even Fervent Fang that's consistent. This does have a cooldown, but you can get some value out of it a lot of the time. Frozen Heart is C tier for me. The shield that you're going to get from it isn't like insanely big, and again, defensive gems in PvE aren't that great. So looking at the list here, would I move anything around? Maybe I drop Freedom and Devotion down to a D tier. After that, I don't know if I would really change anything. The S tier is only for the best of the best, in my opinion. These 4 gems I would use on every single class, and I would be very happy to do so. When I enter the A tier, range classes, meh for Blessing. Melee classes, meh for Bloody. Beneficial effects you need for Bottled Hope. Primary attacks aren't great for everyone. You can see kind of the theme here for A category. B tier are like average, things that I might slot on if I have copies of them, a bunch of copies. C tier and D tier are things that if I saw them, I would literally just feed or sell on the market, personally. So I'm pretty happy with this list. Let me know if you guys disagree with the PvE portion. I'm open to hearing some opinions. Of course, a lot of everyone has different opinions. So if you guys are curious or have anything to say, let me know in the comment section down below. But let's go ahead and move on to PvP. So PvP, this is where it gets a little interesting. Now, there's a few things I want to mention about PvP. First off is that all gem effects are reduced by 66%, which means that things that are meant to keep you surviving are actually not that good because you cannot rely on them to be survivable because they are such a small increase in shielding or defensive capabilities or things like that, otherwise I would just put a lot of gems here in the S tier, but because of that, they're not. And then things like, damage amping are always really good no matter what. But some of these CC effects and things like that can potentially be a little bit more interesting. And so the list changes a lot. Also, for those of you that are curious, I'm not going to say I'm the absolute best PvPer. Over the past 3 months, I've been really just vaulting and doing things like that. I've stayed clear from battlegrounds because I just don't find them very fun. Earlier on, I got legend for a few seasons. PvP in this game is incredibly easy to rank up, but if you want my opinion on PvP, here it is. This one's going to be a lot shorter because I think that we have already kind of gone over the gems themselves, and now I just need to place them in my perspective of PvP. Battle Guard returns to the C ranking. The melee damage decrease can really be solid in some scenarios, but oftentimes Wizards, Demon Hunters, Necros are just going to absolutely annihilate you before you get in to the fight. Berserker's Eye also goes back up to S tier. Damage amping, again, super good, no matter what. Black Rose actually earns a B tier in my opinion. I really like the immobilization effect, and this can really come in clutch, and oftentimes absolutely screws me over if they randomly have a Black Rose. Blessing also jumps up to an A tier. Again, you're going to want to use this on your melee classes, but if you charge in on like a Barbarian, and if you play it right, you can definitely proc this while you're charging in and get a nice burst chunk of damage. Bloodsoaked Jade, again an S tier, movement speed, damage, what's not to like. Bloody Reach, A tier once again, quite like the damage amping on Wizards and Demon Hunters. Bottled Hope, this one's also going to be an A tier. Beneficial effect users are just going to be massively in favor of this one. Carson's Invigoration for the same reasons as Bloody Reach, you know, primary attack damage, massive damage increase for those people that can get value out of their primary attacks. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna drop that in a B tier because the classes that I mentioned previously, like Satyr and Barb, have a harder time getting use out of this in PvP than PvE. But the things like Demon Hunter potentially still have the same value. Chain Death, D tier. You're not oftentimes going to hit multiple targets, therefore it's D tier. Chip, I actually quite like this one. This one's an A tier for me in PvP. You're going to run a lot more CC moves in PvP, therefore get more value out of Chip. Cutthroat's Grin is going to be a D tier gem. I absolutely hate this one. You really are going to find yourself having a hard time getting value out of this one in a lot of different scenarios because people can move towards you and tend to fight you rather than running away. Defiant Soul is also going to be a D tier gem. The fact that you have to be relatively close in range to get value out of this one is a pretty poor circumstance. Echoing Shade, I love this gem in PvP. It kind of trips people up sometimes, and although the clone doesn't last that often, you can definitely screw someone's combos up by just getting a clone out there and annoying them. Everlasting Torment. This one's tricky. I kind of want to put it in S tier. I think I'm going to put it in S tier because the reason for that is it's really annoying to try to heal with Everlasting Torment on you. Now, again, Resonance reigns king. So if this was like just a Resonance list, then these 1-stars would be, you know, B tier or C tier. But the fact remains that this effect is so crippling that it can really screw over your opponents a lot of the time, and the damage and attack speed is quite nice. Follower's Burden is D tier, and so is Freedom of Devotion. Summons are pretty bad in PvP. Howler's Call, I'm going to put this one in S tier. The stun, the wolf explosion damage, and the fact that it's ranged and locks on is really good, and the value out of this becomes insane. Hunger, D tier. You're not going to be killing enemies all that often. Lightning Core ends up being a B tier. Decent damage. Mocking Laughter, absolute D tier. Nightmare Wreath, this one ends up being a C tier. The CC effect is quite solid. Pain of Subjugation ends up being a B tier because again, you're using a lot more PvP CC moves. Phoenix Ashes ends up being A tier gem for me. I think it's a step down from some of these ones, but it is quite solid to avoid death. The shield isn't as big as people would hope though. Power and Command is B tier. You're not going to get as much value out of this because you can't cycle your cooldowns as easily since you do need them in certain circumstances over some other circumstances. Versus just waiting for the skill damage amp to come and then using all your skills then. Respite Stone, damage reduction. I kind of think this is a little bit better in PvP than PvE, therefore I'm going to give it a C tier. Seething Bile is an S tier for the same reasons that Everlasting Torment is, as well as just additional damage. Sled's Weakening is an absolute D tier. Trickshot Gem ends up being a B tier because of the channeling increased viability. Unity Crystal, this one's a C tier gem. The damage reduction can be interesting. Zodstones ends up being a D tier. Zwinson's Haunting ends up being a C tier. You can get some value out of this sometimes, but oftentimes you're going to get zero value because killing an enemy and getting some value out of that is really difficult. Fervent Fang is a B tier gem. You're not oftentimes going to hit the same target over and over again in PvP, therefore it's a B tier. Abiding Curse ends up being a C tier. This one's a little bit tricky. I kind of want to put it in B tier, and I think I am because the value of that is pretty solid. Blessed Pebble ends up being an A tier gem for me. Again, I like the beneficial effect duration increase and can really help you out in a lot of PvP scenarios. Heartstone ends up being a C tier because in PvP, you can run a lot of shields, and this can give you some value there, whereas in PvE, I would never run any shield, and therefore it doesn't do anything for me. Volatility Shard ends up being a D tier. The value on this compared to Sentence, if Sentence drops a tier, Volatility Shard should drop a tier in my opinion as well. Curse Sling ends up being a B tier. The blind can be very useful in some scenarios, and honestly might even be an A tier. I think I'm gonna go B tier though, just because of the value of this. Hellfire Fragment, I kind of like this one. I'm actually gonna put it in A tier. The reason for this is it really combos well with like Wizard, Teleport builds, Barbarians, Crusaders, things that people are jumping into the fight and just getting a ton of damage out. This allows you to just get a little bit more damage out of your character. Concentrated Will ends up being a B tier gem. You're gonna have to use your dashes at inopportune times, therefore you're not gonna get value in terms of playing around this gem as much as other gems. Frozen Heart ends up being a B tier gem as well. I quite think this is kind of solid for the secondary effect of the chilling aspect, but the shield on it is pretty mediocre, so I don't like it for that reason. As the final modifications to the list, what would I drop down to C tier? I'm not sure that I would really drop anything super important down to C tier. I think that for the most part, this is quite solid. You know, if I was looking for a bell curve, this is pretty much it. You know, B tier is going to be the most stacked. C tier is a little bit light compared to, you know, D and B tier, but I think this is quite solid. S tier gems, these are the ones that I would want on every PvP build because of how annoying they are or how much damage they do in PvP. So that's going to be my list for PvP. That's also going to be my list for PvE. Let me know if you guys disagree with anything. Please do so in the comment section down below. I've tested all the new gems, by the way. If you guys have not seen my videos on that, be sure to do all that. And that's going to be it. So if you guys really enjoyed it, again, thanks for watching. Like the video. I'll see you all tomorrow.